Got the whole world in your hands. You got the... Hello, here I am again, Bharat. Welcome to Palmistry Unplugged. And today we're continuing with our lecture on the lifeline. And today we're going to look at the endings of the lifeline, and then we're going to talk about the influence lines and challenge lines and what I call fine capillary lines. Okay, so now we talked yesterday about the middle portion, like looking at the lifeline and see what condition the line is. Is it thick? Is it thin? Is it breaks? Are there islands? So you get some ideas about how the life is going for the person. And now when we get to the end, there are different endings, So in the endings of the life, is the lifeline getting thinner? Is there like a downward line, illness line, and then there's a break, and the line gets weak and thin and goes on for some time? So this is usually an indication the person's going to have something like a stroke, and they're going to be hospitalized, or they're going to be bedridden or not be able to get around. And if so, on the other instance, you see very often the lifeline just kind of fading away, strong and just fading, getting slightly thinner, and the person just fades away from old age, whatever that means. And you get the other type, which is actually in my hand. The lifeline it ends abruptly, strong and abruptly. So that usually means that the person will have full energy up until the day he dies, and very often it's going to be sudden death, like this. So there's all sorts of situations. You can see a lot of little downward lost lines like that. Like you can see the end of the lifeline tasseling with tassels, and this is the dissipation of life energy at the end, where the life is just somehow going to fall apart. I do coordinate that with the headline to see what's also going on in the headline in regards to that as well. And another situation is, which you see more towards the end of the lifeline, or 3/4 of the way into the lifeline, is the line bifurcates. Now, I would say over 50% of people have a lifeline that bifurcates. So if it bifurcates, and depends on the strength. Let's say one part of the bifurcation wraps around in the normal way, and the other line bifurcation goes into Neptune. So, and now you're looking at where's more the strength. Is there more energy in the status quo line, or more energy in the unknown line? So the thing is, what it means is that the person will have choices in their life where they have to decide whether I remain the same, or do I go into the unknown? Do I go into expansion, or do I keep the status quo? So this would be not just one-time decision, because in a way it's not on a timeline. It would be this person's going to have this choice. Even though I'm not a believer in free will and all that stuff, actually. But the person is given choice at that point. So if there's more energy going into the line that goes into Neptune, I actually like to see that, because that means the person will be dropping some of their arrogance. They'll be dropping some of their ego. Because remember, the lifeline is about your ego story. Now, if it goes into Neptune, and Neptune rules spirituality in palmistry, then the person is going to be less arrogant at the end of their life. Whatever he does, that's going to be a progress. Not to say that in certain cases the status quo is fine. If there's nothing that needs to be happening or anything, the person might have a small ego to begin with, so he doesn't need to go into Neptune. So you are looking at that. Another situation is when there's a gap. The lifeline ends, and then there's a space, and there's a gap. So anything can happen in the gap. So what the situation is the person is out of the paradigm. He's out of the mind, body, spirit model. And in that situation, anything can happen because he's not confined or he's not secure in his situation. So the positive side of that is the person has a very high probability of having spiritual awakening, having a spiritual insight, having spiritual knowledge, because he's out of the box and goes into actually reality, true reality. So that can be a very good situation. So in that situation, I do look to see how strong the other lines are. And also when the lifeline does continue again, how strong the lifeline is after that. So whether it's going to mean the person's going to die, because the person could die in that situation. Anything can happen, or nothing can happen, you know. Mostly it's about spiritual awakening, I find, because anyhow, my subculture of people that I give reading to are mostly on the spiritual path, so that is mostly the case. If you are giving readings to the average person out there that's not on a spiritual or consciously on a spiritual path, then maybe it's a different situation. So that's also something that I have pointed out about creating your own database and what's true in your point of view and the people that you meet. So that's also very, very important in palmistry, is that you create your own database. You know what's true. You know the probabilities of this line means this and that line means that, and there's a certain probability about that. Okay, so that's the gap. I meet a lot of people with the gap because I have, I'm in that field, in that milieu of people working on themselves. So I do meet a lot of people like that. So what I find, people don't so much interested in when they're going to die as much as how they're going to die. Almost everybody is interested in how they're going to die. And you can say that from the lifeline. You can really say, oh, you're fading away, or it's going to go suddenly. You're going to be full power to the end, or your life is you're going to need to save some money and have a nest egg because you're not going to be able to be that active when you get older. And people actually like to hear that. And so of course, we'll be talking about that more when we get to that headline and the hotline. But the strengths of those lines are going to determine how a person's going to die. Like if the main weakness is in the heart center, the heart channel, then that's circulation is probably going to be the weak link. That is the case, because in Western people, especially, the heart line is always the weakest line. 90% of the time. So that is like the ending of the lifeline. Sometimes I do see a line coming up and curving around, and sometimes joining the lifeline and not. And I first started to notice that several years ago, and in the books they call it the line of death. That when that line meets the line of life, then that's the point of death. I haven't confirmed that yet. I'm still pondering over exactly what that means. Why that line, I don't have it, but you're going to see that once in a while, at least I do. Now another situation is when you do see two lifelines, and I'll be talking about that more when we talk about the Saturn line, because very often you see the Saturn line turning into a new lifeline, but sometimes you do see two lifelines. And just in general, what that means, in fact, it's a good sign. Because normally what it means is a quantum leap in consciousness. And so it depends also what hand is in. Is it in the left hand, the right hand? If it's in the left hand and not the right hand, it means a quantum leap in consciousness, but it's still to happen. And when it's in both hands, it means it hasn't happened yet, but probably going to happen in the next life. So that's important. You will see that people doing that. I will talk about that again when you do see the Saturn line curving over and joining the headline, or lifeline, and headline. That's true. So I will be talking about that more in detail. And so this is again Bharat. Here I am, and I'm from Palmistry Unplugged. And of course, I want you to download my book. I want you to have a reading with me. I want you to do my course. I want you to subscribe to my channel. I want you to do all these things. So, but also happy if you don't. It's okay if you learn palmistry. Actually, that's very good. It's why I'm putting that. I am putting this onto YouTube. It's sort of a legacy that when I leave this body. Well, according to me, I do go, my lifeline ends just like that, right into Neptune. So there is going to be, boop, sudden awakening, but also I will leave the body like from one day to the next. So at the age of 84. So, so I still have a few years left, but I want to have this knowledge on record, and that you can hook into, or anybody can hook into. Okay, so I'm signing off.
Got the whole world in your hands. You got the whole wide world in your hands.